We now move on to a new book by Aaron Klein entitled The Manchurian President. We know that Obama has strong ties to communists, socialists, and other anti-American extremists, but there's new information in this book that I think is worth hearing about. Aaron, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right, so we know he was connected very deeply to William Ayers, and it was pushed away by the left-wing media. But what else do you disclose in your book, Aaron, that has a real blockbuster potential here?
It's really unbelievable. Bill Ayers is only the beginning of an anti-American radical nexus that permeates the White House and that helped Obama from his start all the way until today. And we start with Obama's background, which we actually found that he attended a radical Sunday school that was tied to Bill Ayers, that was tied to the Students for a Democratic Society, on to his mysterious college years, which we all know Obama has refused to release his transcripts. He hasn't told us.
Let's pause right there because this intrigues me. Why is he the only president in history who has not released his college transcripts?
As far as I know, he's the only president who's gone to such great lengths to hide his college, not only college transcripts, but also who was his mentor at the time, which associations was he involved with, or which student organizations. And
who paid for Obama's scholarship to university, both the Occidental and Harvard? Do you know, Aaron?
We looked into that, and we found at least some radicals who wrote him a recommendation letter for his scholarship. But more than that, in the book, in The Manchurian President, we find that he was associated back at Occidental and then at Columbia University with, get this, radicals once again tied to Bill Ayers. Actually, when Obama was at Occidental, he gave what was billed as his first political speech. It was against South African apartheid at the time. And that speech was sponsored by what was known as the Students for an Economic Development, which was led by Tom Hayden, who is one of the founding members. Actually, he wrote the founding document.
Oh, Tom Hayden, old husband of Jane Fonda.
Indeed, he wrote the founding document for the Students for a Democratic Society.
All right, so we know that Obama associated with far-left communists, socialists, radicals, Leninists, Marxists when he was young. We also know that Jesse Jackson spit in the salad of white people, but people change. So the issue today is, has he changed, or do you think he's the same or worse?
The problem is that in the book, we actually detail other extremists in his White House, including, by the way, David Axelrod. We find his communist mentor and communist links for him that, I was...
Tell us about David Axelrod, because I've heard people from Chicago say he's a known lifetime radical. Tell us about old Axelrod.
If you look at his official biography, it looks pretty like an American story. He started off representing different political candidates in Chicago and then branched off. But you look behind the scenes, and we find, among other things, he used to work for a newspaper that was a communist front, and that afterwards, and we found documentation where the communist admits to this, that he was mentored by an individual, David S. Cantor, who was a communist activist. And
Aaron, how could an administration be so riddled with radicals like this and get away with it? Let's turn it around so that the average listener can understand this. Let us say a right-wing president had been elected. Someone never heard of him 2 years ago. He's young. And let's say David Duke had won the presidency, and he starts appointing people to various positions going around Congress. It turns out that he appoints people who were once members of a Ku Klux Klan associated groups. How can this man get away with this?
With it very easily, and that is because the media is doing absolutely no investigative reporting whatsoever on this man. They're failing to look into what has obviously been the most radical year in American politics ever. And they're failing to report on these associations. They're failing to report on who's writing the stimulus bill, on who crafted the health care bill. I mean, in the book, we actually expose radicals who helped write the health care bill, who actually earlier on admitted in their writings, and we documented in the book, that the very outline of what became the health care bill, Obama's health care bill signed into law, that was meant, and they actually admitted to this, to bring down the U.S. capitalist system, to absolutely flood it with so many demands that you would ultimately bring it down. And that's a constant theme that we found with Obama's radicals from his Alinsky-style training all the way through those who helped his political career, who helped his first political speech, who sat on boards with him, and that is boring from within, changing the system from within. And this is why it's so important to focus on ACORN. This is why it's so important to focus on the SEIU, which, by the way, Obama has links to that have never been disclosed, and they're in this book, in The Manchurian President. It's because they're talking about boring from within in order to bring about the downfall of the U.S.
But during the campaign, when individuals in the media try to point out the dangers of this Barack Hussein Obama, McCain himself made light of it. McCain said he's a nice man, just like I, has a wife and 2 children. Do you remember those days, Aaron?
Unbelievable. I mean, McCain had a slam dunk home run with Obama's association with Jeremiah Wright. He refused to use it. With Obama's association with Bill Ayers, he refused to really get into that.
But what about Obama's association with the Nation of Islam, black liberation theology, black political extremists? Why was that swept under the rug by John McCain?
So important, by the way. I mean, Obama's church of 20-something years, which we forget about, Trinity United Church of Christ, was heavily linked to the Nation of Islam, to Louis Farrakhan. Actually, Obama and Farrakhan graced the cover of Jeremiah Wright's monthly magazine several times. And Obama, when he was in his early days as as a congressman, he covered a certain district in South Chicago that was largely Nation of Islam, and he had Nation of Islam members on his payroll. And by the way, David Axelrod we all think of him as a Jew. Guess what? He's connected to the Nation of Islam. He's on the finance committee of St. Sabina Church in Chicago, which was led by that pastor, Louis.
But you understand that radical Jews are to Judaism what rogue priests are to the Catholic Church, what radical left-wing Jews are to Judaism. I mean, they're Jews in name only. Let's not get into the Jewish thing, Aaron. You report from Jerusalem. Tell us why Obama hates Israel. How's he getting away with that with his Jewish Democrat supporters? You want to scratch the wall with some chalk on a blackboard? Tell me how the large Jewish contributors to the Democrats don't see what's going on with regard to Israel. Aaron, do you know that one?
Forget even putting Jews aside, I think most Democrat voters had no idea what they were getting. I mean, they have to realize that the Democrat Party has been hijacked by this fringe extremist left, controlled by Bernardine Dohrn, Bill Ayers, Marilyn Katz, Betty Lou Saltzman. They're all there. But the Jews in particular, I think if you take your average American liberal Jew and you ask them, what are the top 10 things that are important to you? Israel will probably come number 7, number 8. Although it seems that their attitude is changing. I mean, you saw Ed Koch now, who with Jimmy Carter switched sides to Ronald Reagan, and that really precipitated a massive change of the Jewish voting. And I think Ed Koch can really be looked at as an indicator of the American Jewish vote, and he is going ballistic over Obama. And in the book, by the way, we detail in The Manchurian President Obama's deep ties to these anti-Israel extremists like Rashid Khalidi, like Bill Ayers himself, by the way.
But if you connect Obama to Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, this is not surprising, is it? The only surprising part in all of this is how he's gotten away with it. We kept hearing that Islam is a peaceful religion, although many of us doubt it because we've read the Quran. But let's say that that's a given for most Muslims who frankly want to be left alone. But we hear that Islam was hijacked by a few extremists. That went on for a number of years. So are you suggesting that Obama hijacked the Democrat Party the same way that the Taliban hijacked Islam?
There's no question. There's no question that that's what happened, that the Democrat Party has been hijacked by this extreme leftist fringe, and that most Democrat voters don't realize what hit them. They don't realize that this...
But wait, you say the Manchurian president, that's a loaded statement, as though he's a sleeper put here by a foreign government. Are you implying that?
In the introduction, I make very clear that I don't think he's a sleeper agent for communism. I don't think he's a sleeper agent for some weapons conglomerate, which is what the second movie was about. But I believe that he is an agent for change. He is not what he seems in a very deep way, and we need to be concerned about him. And that was why we ultimately picked this sensational title. But by the way, despite its sensationalism, the book has over 800, almost 900 endnotes. I mean, we went through for 2 years, me and my co-author, Brenda J. Ellett.
Aaron, if you were to be asked in one sentence, like, make believe I'm Louis B. Mayer, and you're coming in with a film script, and it's called The Manchurian President, Give me the one line in there that's the most blockbuster thing that you've uncovered. I mean, we know about his connections to Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, William Ayers, Bernard Dorn. We know about all of their connections to the far left, but is there something radically new in your book that we should know about now in the Savage Nation?
Actually, the entire thing. I mean, we uncover an anti-American fringe nexus that, unfortunately, we're not talking about the 1960s anymore. We're talking about helping to draft current White House policy. We're talking about helping to draft massive bills, including, by the way, the new immigration reform bill, which we find they actually talk about how immigration reform would ensure Democrat rule for the long term. We catch them in this. And so, unfortunately, this is all new. It's new information. It doesn't matter. Obama's history is in here.
What can we do about it? At the end of the day, Aaron, what the hell can we do about it when we have a fourth estate that has become a fifth column, as I've so aptly stated on this show numerous times? We do not have an independent press in this country. What